Hello, this is Patrick once again from Heavy Therapy, and I want to put together my favorite 10 albums of the year so far here at the midpoint of 2021. A couple of ground rules I set for myself: no demos, no EPs, um, no compilations, no splits. These are full-length LPs, full-length albums released by bands or artists in 2021. Um, and didn't want to overthink it. I'm not going to give too much opinion here because it's just the midpoint of the year, and then I'll put together a top 10 or probably top 20 at the end of the year, 2021. Um, I've probably listened to around 80 or so new LPs released in 2021. I don't know if that's a lot. I don't know if that's very little. Um, Certainly, I've put together a list in throughout my life when I've listened to a lot less music over a given year. So let's begin here at the 10 spot, talking about Demiser and the album Through the Gate, Eternal. Um, Demiser is a black thrash band, and I do think that's a good description of them, a blackened thrash band. This album was put out by Boris Records. It's their debut album. Um, I am not a huge fan of thrash metal, though I am trying to get into some thrash as I develop my musical palette, as I go on my musical journey throughout my life. But I tend to want things a bit more heavier whenever I listen to heavy music. Demiser is fast, speedy, black and thrash. There's some death metal parts. Some songs are just straight up even, basically death metal songs. Um, this is a great debut album. It's right here at my 10 spot. For now, this is Demiser with Through the Gate, Eternal. The 9 spot is a band, another debut album, band called Gravesend. This is an album called Methods of Human Disposal. It's a 20 buck spin release. A fantastic label out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And this is also a band that, I was going through the Dark Throne catalog recently, and maybe Panzerfaust is the album I'm thinking of. But if you like crust punk, black and roll, you might like Gravesend. Vocals are low in the mix, drums are the highest point in the mix, and they sound fantastic. Um, I kind of sometimes describe it as hardcore music played by death metal fans. Um, but yeah, it's a thrashy, hardcore, punky, just filthy debut that I love every time. The more I spin this album, the more I really, really like it. And this album art is probably my second favorite album art of the year so far. Amazing actual photo on the front in the 1980s. Grimy image in the back. Awesome. Number 10, Gravesend, Methods of Human Disposal. Theme here. I don't think this theme's not going to hold up, but I'm just realizing. Number 8 is another debut album. This is Obstruktion, um, Isolation Records. Um, this is called Monarchs of Decay. It was one of the first releases of the year that I heard. I saw that Death Wish Records distributes this in the United States, and first few seconds into the first track, I was hooked. I was like, this is going to be awesome. Hardcore, metallic hardcore, but none of the bullshit parts, right? When they give you a breakdown, it's not a cheesy breakdown, it's effective. The guitar tone is just one of the sickest guitar tones I've ever heard. Um, they're barking about the corruption of elites, the corruption throughout institutions, and that artwork too. Just the artwork brings me back actually to maybe even symbolic by the band Death. But Obstruction is a badass band. If you've never heard of them, check them out. Um, just a 30-minute album or so, comes at you hard. It's relentless. Again, mostly kind of hardcore, metallic hardcore. They tease you with these death metal leads that then drop out and then they're back at you with hardcore DB pounding music. Top 10 albums of my year so far. Number 8, Obstruktion, Monarchs of Decay. Number 7 is a second album by, I'm going to mangle this pronunciation, but by Fuath. Um, and, you know, I was immediately caught by the album art, um, atmospheric, black metal, for fans of Russian circles, though, I would say as well. Great drum work, great guitar work. Um, yeah, just an album that you can put on and listen to, nod your head, get lost in the melodies. It's catchy, um, and it's probably more accessible if you're not really deeply into some of the more obscure, harder to listen to black metal projects. Um, Good stuff here, Fuath, and it's called Two. Make sure I remember where I am. Okay, so number 6. Now most of these are going to be metal, hardcore, heavy music, but not all of them. Um, Number 6 here is Daddy's Home by St. Vincent. St. Vincent um, is the name that Annie Clark goes by. Annie Clark is this multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter, really rock star. Um, Annie Clark, she has multiple albums at this point. This is either her 5th or 6th album. It might be my favorite, and it's she's going for a. There's all kinds of music on here from the last 5 or 6, 7 decades, but it also still really sounds modern. It sounds like St. Vincent. She has her quirky guitar lines that I love. Um, but there's doo-wop, there's psychedelic rock, there's singer-songwriters type songs. Um, just well done. Yeah, I don't know what you would call it. Psychedelic pop music. Um, Annie Clark's awesome. St. Vincent is awesome. Really impressed by this album. It is number 6 on my list, and it is put out by Loma Vista. Number 5 is one of my favorite bands of all time. Um, every album they put out is a departure from their last one, and sometimes they split their audience, they split their fan base of whether or not the current project is the best iteration. But what's awesome about them is, reasonable people can disagree on what album of theirs, what era of theirs is their best, because whatever they deliver tends to be standout. Um, I'm talking about Manchester Orchestra and the album The Million Mask of God. Um, this Andy Hall is the songwriter, the main songwriter and guitar player and vocalist, and he really shines on here. Just absolute brilliant vocalist and lyricist. Um, this is an album that to me, it's one of those albums that it's hard to imagine um, being put out. Um, Meaning, it's just a creative album. Um, band that does a lot of stuff. They can do grungy type, heavy guitar based music. They can do more stripped down acoustic songs. They sometimes sound like folk music. Again, they sometimes sound like hard rock. Um, they have psychedelic elements, right? Progressive elements. This brings in some synth, but a lot of it is actually played by the drummer who has these triggers when he hits the drums. analog with the stick, this digital sound is created, and I like that part of this album. Um, the first single took Bad Head took me a bit to get into. I was nervous about what this would sound like, but really a sui generis, in my opinion, piece of music. Um, Fans should be happy about this album, I think, and I'm actually a fan of their more aggressive stuff, but this is not very aggressive. But it's a just extremely well done piece of music. Manchester Orchestra, also out by Loma Vista Records. My number 5 spot, top 10 albums of the year so far. Number 4 is an album that recently came out, and I'll have more to say about this at the end of the year, I'm sure. Most of these will probably, I don't know what's going to come out yet, right? But many of these will probably still be in my top 10. And certainly these top 4 are going to be really hard to bump off. Number 4, the latest studio album by Amenra called Doorn. First release from Relapse Records. It did just come out on the 25th. I got it in early on the 23rd. Still haven't listened to it all that much, but immediately 4 or 5 listens. Might be my favorite Amenra album. Amenra is post-metal, but they have that hardcore energy to them as well. Some of the earliest stuff is definitely really hardcore influenced. Doorn starts up slow. It's very cinematic. They build up their music, they build up their emotions, they build up your feelings. And then there's this big release. Very fun listen. It's post metal. It can be slow, sludgy. It's fun. Um, Playing along, playing air guitar, right? Playing along to this music. You see you try to follow along the chord strum, the voicings of the chords, the strumming pattern when the bass comes in, and it's just really fun. Listen, deep, deep, emotionally heavy music. Um, I would say for fans of the Sargent House record label, probably would also get into Amenra. Check out Amenra if you like post metal. Very heavy yet beautiful music here by Amenra. My number 5. Actually, my number 4. Top 10 albums of the year so far. Number 3 is just a band that I immediately fell in love with when I first heard their debut album and then their follow-up EP not too much late not that late that much later after I heard their debut album. This is Yautja. Amazing artwork. This is called The Lurch, also from Relapse Records, their first release from Relapse. Just a badass band. Um, some of the best drum work I've ever heard. The drummer is also in the band, the post-metal band Thou. The bassist, the guitar player, and the drummer uh, all do some of the vocal work. Um, Heavy as balls. Um, Hard to describe their sound. They always said that they kind of get kicked out of they would play hardcore shows and they were too metallic, too metal. They would play metal shows and they were just also just too weird for them. But to me, this isn't weird at all. This is exactly how I want music to sound. Unrelenting. There's doom metal passages. You can hear hardcore, you can hear grind, you can hear converge, you can hear Gajira. This to me is a 10 out of 10. The Lurch by Yautja. My third favorite album of the year so far. Coming up next, this is the great album by the band Dvne, Metal Blade Records. I actually forgot what it's called. Etemen, Ænka is what it's called. This is their second album. First listen for me. I haven't actually, still to this day, I haven't heard their debut. Um, Tell me in the comments if the debut is better than this, because this to me is a modern masterpiece. I first heard it and I was like, this is better than Lateralis. You know, Tool's big masterpiece from 2001, I think. This is this generation's Lateralis, in my opinion. Now, you can also hear some Tool influence in the music, But this takes you on a journey. It's an hour long, beautiful, progressive, sludgy, I've been told. Um, Sludgy but not stoner in my opinion. Progressive metal, some sludge influences, beautiful guitar work, amazing story, trade-off between clean vocals and um, growling, scream vocals, some nice female vocals in the band as well. I think she also is the keyboardist. Dune, this is another 10 out of 10 in my opinion. Dune is my second favorite album of the year so far. Number one, um, I am both personally surprised and not surprised that this is my number one release because not surprised is because they're one of my favorite bands of all time. Surprised because whenever you have a favorite band, it's really hard. It you probably judge them more. You're more nitpicky about the parts. You heard them more, so you go. Some of their stuff can sound too familiar, but I'm thinking about right here, Fortitude by Gojira, the French-based. Well, that's the thing. What kind of music do they play at this point? So they started out as a more. They were never like a pure death metal band. They have groove metal. They have interesting sort of dynamic, almost indie sounding interludes and parts, post metal parts throughout their career. Um, so I said, not surprised because Gojira is one of my favorite bands. Surprised because Magma is not my favorite album of Gojira, even though I think it's really good. Um, so I was anticipating the follow up, but I wasn't sure exactly how it would hit me. This to me is a masterpiece, 10 out of 10. Um, my favorite song is probably Sphinx. Um, they really bring you back to the Way of All Flesh era on some of their heavier parts, in my opinion. But the new ground they tread, catchy without being cheap, memorable, again without being, lazy. Um, Amazing lyrics, amazing vocal performance by Joe. He's one of the best vocalists out there in the game, in my opinion. And um, yeah, just amazing track order. It flows quite well. Jira put out a masterpiece, in my opinion. This is my favorite album of the year so far, and we will see how all these hold up at the end of the year. But um, please like and comment and subscribe to me. And in the comment section, what do you like about what I like? What are some of your favorite albums of the year so far? What are some of the albums that you're anticipating that you might think that I should or need or want to check out? Um, put your list in the comment section below. And yeah, I plan on doing more of these videos. I want to make this channel one of the um, I'm mostly into metal, but one of the metal slash heavy slash just good quality music channels on YouTube. Um, Unboxings, reviews, list, um, ranking albums, ranking albums from bands, um, doing tier list, just having some fun with this. And please, I really want this to be interactive, so comment, like, subscribe, and yeah, what should I check out? What have you checked out so far in 2021? And thank you for watching, and I will see you all soon.